Hello, everyone. I am Sandy Hardikar, co-founder and CEO at Network Science. I'm super excited today to speak to one of my favorites and one of top-ranked sales gurus in the world, Carson V. Heady. Carson, thank you for speaking with us today on this co-create.ai platform where we interact with world leaders like yourselves. The whole idea is to understand what's in your mind during these times. You can share some nuggets of wisdom. You can give your experience, how things are going. What are the things that various organizations should adopt, and what obviously the audience that we'll focus on today, which is the sales people around the world, should focus on. So we will get there, but just a quick introduction from my side for you. Carson Heady, as I mentioned, is a best-selling author of a book series that he has written, which is Birth of a Salesman. Of course, he's ranked in the top 50 sales authors on LinkedIn. Thousands and thousands of social followers. The last count, I think, was 350,000 social followers. Top Microsoft social seller. Of course, many times gold medalist, President's Club winner. He's been published. His views have been published in numerous sales publications. He, of course, served as a radio host as well, and have been invited to be interviewed on radio, podcast, and TV. And today, thankfully, he's found time to talk to us on Network Science's co-create.ai video platform. Thank you, Carson. Thank you for joining in today.
Sandy, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. Really excited to have the dialogue today and engage with your listeners.
Brilliant, Carson. Carson, today's topic is specifically focused on sales and salespeople and sales managers and all our dear friends who are working very hard to meet their numbers, but also most importantly, adding value to their customers' business. So we wanted to focus today on that community, which I don't think many people do focus on that. But coming from that same background, and you've of course researched on them and you've written about them very extensively. I think it is pertinent for us to focus on that that set of people. So let me start by asking a very simple, easy question. I'm sure it is out of a hat. How has sales changed fundamentally due to the pandemic?
Yeah, that's phenomenal question, Sandy, and I think it's top of mind for everyone. There's an old saying that nothing happens until someone sells something. So salespeople are fundamental in keeping things moving and really impacting organizations with solutions and also driving outcomes. And that's all changed from the pandemic. But fundamentally, sales is still the same. It's still focused on people. Being customer obsessed, making sure we understand our clients and prospects, making sure we're meeting them where they are and adding value, being communicative, being transparent. So those things are very much the same. Also the process element. Sales is all about people and process, finding, the right people and investing in those people, training them, empowering them, but also making sure that they're following the right process. And that process changes over time. Often with small tweaks, not fundamental shifts. But during a pandemic, you've seen that change pretty dramatically as far as what that process looks like. And what's changed, Sandy, is really the variables, the playing field, as I like to call it. Sales is very much like a sport in that it has a playing field. There's a lot of resources and variables at play. The way that we connect meaningfully with people has changed. The way people want to connect, the way customers want to connect has changed. And the way that they connect with their customers has changed as well. And so salespeople and sales organizations very much have to play an important strategic role in all of that. They have to shift. They have to shift and make sure that those needs are ultimately being met. That some of these new realizations, as far as what has happened with the state of budgets and cutting costs and layoffs and furloughs, and finding new ways to work, whether that's empowering people to work remotely, meeting customers where they want to be met, but also these new resources that we have, and being able to leverage resources virtually without geographical boundaries. There's a lot of new parameters in the playing field. So that's how sales has changed over the pandemic. But foundationally, it's still all about people and process.
Oh, brilliant. And I like the way you started this by saying nothing happens till the time someone sells something. But at the same time, if you look at in this equation, there is the seller and then there is a buyer. Do you think the buyer and the buying patterns have also changed?
Certainly they have. Buyers and sellers both have processes, and buyer processes have become much more evolved over the years. A lot of them will have procurement arms and vendor management arms. And it's very important to make sure that we have the relationships, not only with those entities, but also with the influencers and the influencers of those influencers within these client organizations. The buying process has changed because they can get so much information at their fingertips. They know and they have the ability to research nearly every variable that they're interested in right out of the gate, because there's so much competitive information being shared. There is so much that they can do from a research perspective. They can go out and find similar use cases. So they can do a lot of research. And so the buyer approach has been modified because of all of the information that's now at their fingertips and the more robust process that's been built out. And I think that's, frankly, Sandy, what forces salespeople to think of unique ways to stand out, to add compelling value at every step, and to truly engage from a spirit of partnership, rather than just reaching out the old way and trying to spout all of the different benefits that they believe their product or solution has, hoping that something catches. Now we have to understand that the buyers are very informed, and we have to approach them as such.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do face that on a regular basis. Buyers, as you rightly said, they know a lot. They have information available in front of them. I've been following CEB in various the Gartner by Sales, which obviously brings out a lot of research around how sellers and buyers equations have changed. And it was quite startling to hear some of the statistics which said that today buyers contact the sellers after they've completed 57% of the buying process. That's phenomenal, because the sellers are actually coming into that entire purchase cycle after 57% of the work is already done, so it's quite difficult for sellers to really make unique differentiation when such a thing happens. What are what are the core ideas that you would give in terms of how should a seller really differentiate himself or herself when the buyer knows a lot, has a lot of information available, of course is talking to many vendors? So how do you differentiate amongst so many people that the buyer is talking to?
Brilliant question, Sandy. It is very much similar to what we were talking about as far as the differentiating factors and elements. What are we going to bring to the table that's going to be unique? And, look, I've worked at organizations where I've had no name logos at small consulting firms, and I've also worked at very large organizations. And I can tell you either way, it's the people element. That is the differentiator. How do we communicate? How are we transparent with our process? We ultimately serve as the evangelist and the advocates for our brand, but also for our customers. And so when we're able to go back to our customer and to let them know, hey, these are the processes, these are the things that my organization values. These are investments that I can make on your behalf. These are things that I can bring to the table. These these are relationships that I can bring to you. How can I best orchestrate the value that's brought and delivered to you as a customer or as a potential customer? You deliver insights. You may be able to bring other customers to the fold. Some of the best relationships have been ones where I was able to introduce other customers that were like-minded or in similar circumstance, so that they could be on a shared journey. It was more me as a facilitator or an orchestrator, as opposed to me driving all of the outcomes and the impact myself. Frankly, as well, we are often flush with whether it's additional resources or people that are at our disposal, partners, vendors, that we can leverage at some of the larger organizations that I've worked at, but even at some of the smaller ones, being able to come in and help them understand the levers that you can pull on their behalf, value that you can bring, industry knowledge that you may have, relationships that you may be able to leverage on their behalf. But frankly, also, Sandy, it's the communication element. I've had a lot of folks tell me that they've done business with me as opposed to others, even if my price was higher, just because I was extremely communicative, sometimes overly so, very proactive in outreach, very responsive. If there was a question asked and I didn't have the answer right away, they still saw the chain. I was very inclusive in the chain as far as making sure that they understood that it was something that I was looking into, trying to deliver them an answer in a timely fashion, very respectful of their milestones. We have to fully listen and make sure that we leverage the things that are important to our customers in every interaction, being respectful of their milestones and their priorities. I have what I like to call the holy sales trinity. It's the customer, the company, and you. So you've got to make sure that they all win in each of these transactional scenarios, but also in the long-lasting relationship.
Oh, brilliant. I'm, of course, going to use some of these aspects in my own sales situations, Darshan. So thanks for that. Thanks for that, Lee. Obviously, as we build relationships, long-term relationships with our customers, and you mentioned about customer, your company, and yourself being the trinity that you need to find and be respectful about the situations and the milestones that the customer is going through. Things do change, right? A lot of times, customers, I've been in situations where we have had great value demonstrated to the clients. The clients love to talk to us, more than anyone else. But then suddenly something happens and the client is not able to move forward with that decision, right? Now, it has nothing to do with the client themselves or the customer themselves, but it's just the situation is demands them to prolong the decision or drop the deal or something like that. That obviously is quite disheartening for the sales team, which has worked so very hard on that. So how would you advise a sales team, after they have spent so much time and energy rallying behind their organization for a deal, and somehow the deal doesn't come through, or it's dropped, or it's postponed?
Yeah, there was a saying that I heard a long time ago that sometimes the beauty is in the attempt. And there's a lot of learning that can transpire even in the losses. And don't get me wrong, they sting. I've had some competitive scenarios that I've lost over the years, very hard fought deals. But you know what I've noticed as a common trend in those situations is a couple of things, Sandy. One, we had a good enough relationship there where the business decision maker called me directly, and they told me that we lost the deal, but they gave good feedback as to why. And it made sense. It was feedback that I felt like I could take to my leadership internally and convey that messaging, because it's important. We as organizations are always trying to improve. Otherwise, what are we doing? And so we're not going to win every deal. But if you don't go down swinging, then you're going to look back on the scenario and second guess yourself. If you can, as a seller, finish a call or a day or a week or a month or a year and look back and know that you did everything you could to control the controllables, and that you brought in all of the right resources, and that you learned from the losses, then you did your job. It's that simple. I've never worried about results. I've always just worried about people and process. I've obsessed over them to make sure that I'm obsessive over customers, colleagues, teammates, etc. but then also from a process perspective, how am I adhering and executing to that process? You've got to make sure the process is sound, and you'll tweak it over time. You'll find things that make it more effective. But it's all about execution of process consistently over time. That's what will lead to consistent results. Sales is a probability game. That's what I love about sales. It's very mathematical and data derivative in nature. And so we find these things that will give us a higher probability to win. And if I lose a deal and I understand why, and I can course correct on the next deal, or I can help my future self see around corners as far as things that might have tripped me up during one deal that I lost, but I'm able to make sure that every subsequent deal, I don't make that same mistake ever again, it makes you more effective. So the losses are important.
Yeah, losses are important. Feedback from the client is super important because it allows us to change, allows us to understand why we are not, winning. Because, as you rightly said, you can't win all, but you can win many if you take the right feedback, use it for your own purposes, make sure that you change, tweak your processes internally, and then start your pursuit with some other client. I think that's great feedback. Uh, you also obviously touched over data, right? Because that is very critical. You get the data, you understand you're going wrong, and things like that. There is, of course, a lot of technology today being used in sales and helping sales team members to really make the right decision before a meeting, after the meeting, before a large bid. You know, how should I approach? Who should I go and talk to? There is tremendous amount of technology in sales today. And my favorite topic is, of course, AI in sales, right? So using AI in sales, are how can sales team really leverage AI for its benefits? Does it really work in your case? Have you seen it working? What kind of value do you think it provides? If used properly.
Without a doubt, Sandy, great question, very near and dear to my heart. AI is definitely playing a much more prominent role, whether it's in the scoring of leads or marketing types of insights, or even just presenting insights around the probability of engagement and purchase. And so what I mean by that is, based on historical trends, we envision that there is a viability of an upsell scenario, or based on engagement with our marketing collateral over time, we view that this leader or this this team member at that organization that is a potential client, they are engaging, and we deem it a higher viability of engagement and purchase. Also, even from a sales coach's mentality, it's funny. When I started in sales many, many years ago, I was in a call center environment, and a lot of the archaic methods that we had to do for logging and recording calls and scoring them on a scratch pad. Now, from a sales coach's mentality, the ability to search calls for keywords, help leaders mine the data to determine the effectiveness of sales teams on a call. How many times was this word said or this offer brought up? That capability is incredible, and it's only going to continue to get better. And I think it harks back to what we talked about before, Sandy, because it's so key as the buyer process changes. And we talked about how sellers have to really up their game. These types of tools and variables are just going to make us more effective. They're going to make us gravitate toward the higher probability leads, but it's also going to make our process a little bit more fluent. And that's what's going to ultimately lead to better effectiveness.
Yeah, brilliant. And I remember reading about your call center experience in the book that you've written in the first chapter, right? How things, what you felt you were, the salesperson in your book, how he felt he was doing right, but then obviously there were lines of ethical aspects that came in, and and those things, somehow over a period of time, every salesperson has to go through. Let's take a detour into some of change in the way we will do this. I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions, Carlson,
Sure.
and let's see what comes to your mind right up front. Right, volume or value?
It's a good question. Volume or value, I think it's determinant upon the parameters in my mind. We were talking about I've worked in a one call close call center environment, and I've also led sales efforts for multiple year sales cycles in enterprise sales. So my gut says value, but there's certainly environments where volume is key.
Oh, absolutely. There are obviously clearly distinct, very few salespeople, in my opinion, of course, have been able to migrate from a volume-based selling to a value-based selling. It's not an easy journey, clearly. And both of them have a tremendous amount of, learning that both of them have to go through. But it's difficult to have, both the experiences per se. Okay, next one. Long-term relationships or short-term gains, immediate quarter, immediate quarter incentive, or a 1 year long sales cycle.
Yeah, no, absolutely long. It's funny because we were just talking about that. I mean, I've been in sales cycles that are multiple years, but at the same time, like with a long-term relationship, they will often have short-term gains. I think the key to a long-term relationship is understanding mutual priorities. And in an ideal world, you've got a client that cares about how you get paid, how you get compensated, and vice versa. You as a seller care about what looks like a win to your client. And if you really understand that, you can have short-term gains that lead to the long-term relationship. So definitely aim for the long-term relationship and then enjoy the short-term gains along the way.
Absolutely brilliant way of presenting this, Carson. New customers or existing ones?
That's a tough one, Sandy. I've been really fortunate to work in environments where we had much of a hunter mentality, looking for assigning new logos and bringing them into the mix, delivering value to new customers. But also, I think we're very short-sighted sometimes when a transaction happens. We can't pull back on the level of support that we are showing to our customers, to our existing customers. We've got to continue to deliver value and beyond the sale. And so that's a tricky one. I'm going to go 50-50 on that one because I love spending time driving new customers and hunting, so new customer relationships, but also we would be nowhere without existing clients.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, most of the organizations have 80 to 90% of their existing business coming from existing clients. And of course, you grow with your existing clients. But the spice is actually added by the new client logos that that everyone likes to bring home. But yeah, I mean, there is tremendous amount of energy that you get when you win a new logo. But on the other side, you get a lot of satisfaction when an existing customer really wins in their business, and you feel that you've added some amount in that journey. You've contributed in that journey of an existing customer really winning big in their business. So absolutely, it is 50-50 for me as well. I'm going to take, again, a little more detour into your personal aspects, and let's see what comes to your mind. What's your superpower? Of course, outside of sales, you can't use the word sales. You can't use the word writing and social selling, right? So I'm sure you have got another superpower. So let's understand, what's your superpower outside of these?
Yeah, my superpower is connecting. It's just the ability to connect with people and, really just to kind of engage and meet them where they are. I love to meet new people, to talk to people, to understand their journey and their path and where we may be able to help and support each other. And I think that genuine investment into relationships has been very beneficial personally and professionally. I think we have to do that. We have to engage with other people and understand that, their journey, where they are coming from, their perspective, and then ultimately figure out, how can we help each other? And if we come to each other with kind of that genuine selfless nature, it would solve a lot of the world's problems, because I think what a lot of the world's problems are centered around is communication or lack thereof. So definitely connecting. But if I could pick a superpower, I'd pick the ability to freeze time, because there's never enough. And I'd love to just call time out sometimes, take a pause, take a breath, take a nap. But no, I definitely would pick connecting is my personal superpower.
I thought time is not in the hands of sales, no matter what you do.
We need an eighth day in the
I've
week.
never had it. I was telling someone just about 2-3 days back that, how can it be only a 3-day week? The Thursday just went 3 days back. I can't believe the Thursday is back in 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the fun of being in sales, right? Never a dull day. It's always an amazing day, right? Every day is a new day. Fantastic. Which Avenger would you like to become, Carson?
Well, I'd probably have to say either Tony Stark or Bruce Banner, given their brilliant minds and their deep understanding of data. I admire the brainiacs. So, and besides, Tony Stark is Iron Man. So, the ones with really cool alter egos, those are my favorite.
Yeah, perfect. Last one on this. If you have to have only 3 apps on your phone, and you can't pick the Microsoft ones for obvious reasons. Which are the other ones that you will pick up? You've got only 3 apps possible.
Well, definitely I'd start with the Bible, then LinkedIn, but that's owned by Microsoft, so I guess that's ruled out, right?
Yeah.
I'll pick Kindle and Spotify.
Yeah, of course. Right. Okay, fantastic, Carson. I want to shift our conversation just a little bit more towards the existing customers, and the sellers into the existing customers, the account management teams, who are also facing quite a large challenges, even during pandemic, because things have changed. The relationships which you have built through physical meetings, lunches and dinners and things like that, all have obviously gone over the last 18 odd months, 12 odd months. How does really account management happen now? Obviously there are multiple platforms available. There is of course CRMs available, but then it isn't becoming very, very difficult because it's all the stakeholders are now remote. You can't bring them in one room. Isn't it that much more difficult from an account management standpoint today?
It's different. I don't think it's necessarily difficult, Sandy, but it is different. And I think it's forced us to all pivot. And sales is a game where we have to be chameleons. We have to adapt. We have to understand the surroundings. And where I think the pandemic has shifted there is no geographical barrier to getting together. There is no need to travel cross country or make the concessions to do so. There's no time needed to allot for a commute. So there's a lot more time built into our day. There are digital platforms where we can connect with virtually anyone at any time. We have the ability as well, whereas if I'm meeting with a client and what might have been a reschedule or come back together in 2 weeks with a resource on my sales team, I can now do in real time. I can add them immediately to the conversation and cut out time in the sales cycle. So, we were talking before about understanding the parameters of the playing field. The playing field's different. There was no expectation around in-person meetings, so there was no pressure around them. Before we were pressing for in-person meetings because we knew that was the best way to attention, to gain approach, to build rapport, and to build a relationship with potential clients. However, now that's very much changed. So without the expectation being there, we use the best of these digital platforms in order to engage and to nurture the relationship over time. Ultimately, again, it's about people and process. So there are ways to connect with people, maybe even more so. What I've been impressed by is that there are executive briefs that normally would have, forced us to allot multiple days at a time, perhaps traveling cross country, that we can now do virtually. We can break them up into digestible chunks. We can have more stakeholders play a part because they don't even have to leave their pajamas. And there's a lot of different ways that we can engage people that weren't there before. So yes, account management looks very different, but we're also empowered and emboldened by the fact that we have new ways to reach out. We have new insights, as we talked about earlier, around who is engaging, what they're interested in, how we can do outreach, how we can stay top of mind. And there's a lot of additional abilities to be able to work together. At the end of the day, account planning and account management is all about the relationship. And so we use all of these elements at our disposal to invest in the relationship. We can still be transparent, customer centric. We can still do all these things via email and chat and virtual calls. And now, and I've been in a few conversations recently. Now we're headed toward probably what's going to look as very much of a hybrid approach. Some meetings will come back to face to face, but we will continue to use this amazing resource of virtual for a lot of things. And I think that that's great because it allows us to engage in new meaningful ways. It still allows us to have a little bit extra time in the day. As a road warrior, from a sales perspective, there were often days where you'd drive a few hours away just to go see a few clients, and that was your entire day. Now you can talk to 5 times that in a day via virtual calls. So I think you have to take the parameters of the playing field, understand them, and then understand how to keep the customer at the heart of everything that you're doing.
Brilliant, brilliant. As I was hearing you, I was also, remembering the number of stakeholders that have also increased over a period of time. Earlier, we used to talk to possibly one person making the decision, and then over a period of time, this has now become 5, 6, 7 different stakeholders that we have to talk to for one decision to be made in an enterprise. It's also about the organization's ability to take risks, but also the processes within the organizations have completely changed. And what you rightly said, right? Account planning, account management, knowing these stakeholders, understanding their relationships is becoming super critical. And using the platforms and tools is also so critical today because you can no longer rely on emails and Excel files to really manage all this today. Yeah. Awesome. Carson, what's your 3 advice or tips that you would like to give to you obviously given a lot, but if you have to stack rank them into the top 3 advice from your side to the sales team, the sellers out there around the world, what would be they?
Yeah, I think the key elements, Sandy, there's things that you can control in the sales process. So from a sales team perspective, understand, like we talked about, the playing field and the parameters and the resources at your disposal. We can control the quality of the outreach that we make and the service that we provide. We can control the quantity of our outreach and customer interactions, and we can control the consistency over time. And if you make those things centered around people, and that could be people that you touch in the sales food chain. So that's customers, that's partners, that's vendors, that's colleagues, that's other members of your extended team, that's your leadership. Make sure that you understand what's at the pulse of all of those people. What are their priorities? If you deliver a win to everyone involved, and then you make that your priority, understanding what are the motivating factors, what makes them tick. That's true of your customers and also the people that you work with. So focus on people and process. That's what wins overall. So if I'm, talking to the sales team, those are the things that I really urge that you focus on. We've hit on that throughout much of this conversation, especially when we were talking about deals that you can lose, some of the different new technological advances and platforms that are at our disposal. At the end of it, we can control some things, and that's what gives you the best probability of success. Control quality, quantity, and consistency, and you'll win over time.
Fantastic. And what about social selling, Carson? You've written about it quite a lot. You've spoken about it quite a lot in multiple forums. Top three things with regards to social selling. What could they be?
Yeah, I mean, they're very similar, but it's funny, Sandy. I started doing social selling when it was kind of an anomaly, and I had no results that I could necessarily tie to it yet. I just believed that it was the right process because, again, I'm a probability guy. It gave me a better probability of success if I was reaching out and controlling quality of messaging. My messaging has evolved a lot over time. Also, the quantity of outreach. A lot of people will reach out to 1, 2, 5, maybe 10 executives at most in an organization. I'll reach out to hundreds. The largest enterprise account I ever managed, I reached out to over 500 people in that organization. And I met the president of the organization on day 2 in the role. I was in his office within a week before the competitors at a critical time. We staved off all of the competition. We brought a lot of resources to them. And ultimately, it led to a meaningful relationship and partnership. So it's giving yourself the best probability of success, and then frankly the consistency element. I can't just schedule a half hour today and go out on LinkedIn or social and start trying to connect with people and then stop. You don't just water your garden once. You've got to make sure that you do it consistently over time. Continue to fill that pipeline because it's all about conversations. Conversations have the ability to turn into relationships, and then relationships have the opportunity to turn into deals. And so really be intentional about what you're trying to do. But it is a probability game. And so myself the best chance at success. So when I'm social selling, I cast a wide net. I attempt to reach out to a lot of different people to bring immediate value. So identify what is your value, what is your differentiator, how are you going to stand apart from the probably hundreds, if not thousands, of other sellers just like you that are trying to reach out to the same customer. How are you going to stand apart? So think about your differentiating factor, the unique value that you're going to deliver right out of the gate. How are you going to get that conversation? Don't focus on the sale. You're not there yet. Don't focus on the objections. You're not there yet. Focus on how you're going to get that first conversation. Try to come to the table under the pretext or context of what they would care about, and then get that first meeting. And then from there, talk about what they care about, understand what they're grappling with, what their priorities are. And then you'll start to uncover what might be a synergy that you want to explore further. But focus on the conversation first.
Brilliant, Carson. I think, I would like to go on and on this because there are hundreds of questions I have, but but I'm sure we will find more time to get together very soon to do an episode number 2 of this subject, because of course this is a very, very vast subject, very fast changing as well. But at the same time, there are a lot of buyers and sellers who are, struggling to manage themselves. And I'm sure when they listen to you through this platform, there will be lots of tips and ideas that they can take home. I am going to take home a lot for sure. So Carson, thank you very much for joining in today and speaking to me. It was incredible privilege for me to have you on board today. I wish you well. I hope everything is perfect at your end, and we will catch up soon again.
Sandy, the pleasure was mine. Definitely eager to chat again anytime. And, just for all the sellers out there, we are very fortunate to be part of a selling community. And I encourage you to create relationships personally and professionally where you can continue to grow and learn, because that's the best part of sales. I've learned more about sales in the last few years than I ever knew, being a pompous 20-something that wrote a book. So I definitely encourage you to continue to learn and grow, connect meaningfully, and good luck.
Good luck. Thank you very much, Carson. Thank you very much. It was incredible, useful, and very, very exciting to talk to you today. Thank you very much.
You.